Welcome to the virtual board meeting of the Board of School Directors of the School District of Springfield Township. This evening, we had an executive session that started at 6:35 to discuss a personnel matter. And we'll have a reading of the mission statement. The mission of the School District of Springfield Township is to educate and develop all students as learners and citizens who are high-achieving, resilient, and responsible in a changing global community. A roll call, Mr. King.
Mr. Bedard.
Here.
Mr. DeFranco.
Here.
Dr. Etlin.
Here.
Ms. Jordan. Mr. Lapidus.
Here.
Mr. Needleman.
Here.
Ms. Starsfield. Ms. Slapinski. Dr. Taratusky.
Here. At this time, we will have public comments on agenda items. These would be comments that are on this evening's agenda. And I would ask that if you would like to speak, that you use the hand raise feature. We'll allow about 3 minutes per individual so that we can allow everyone who would like to speak. And if you could please state your name and where you are in the township, we would appreciate that. So is there anyone interested in speaking at public comments on agenda items? Okay, seeing that there are none at this time, we'll move to approval of the minutes. July 7th, 2020, interim Zoom meeting, board minutes U. September 1, 2020, interim Zoom meeting, board minutes C. And September 15th, 2020, regular Zoom meeting, board minutes D. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay, Mr. King.
The motion has been read and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion carries.
Approval of the treasurer's report, treasurer's report C. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Okay, Mr. King?
The motion has been read and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Administrative report, Dr. Hacker.
Thank you, Dr. Taratusky. I have a few items I'd like to report out on. First is you probably have already noticed that we have an agenda item for this evening to accept a $50,000 donation from the EEHSP, our elementary home and school group. Last week, I contacted Kristen Gray, their president, to express my extraordinary appreciation to all the members of the EEHSP, not only this year, but in the past few years, who contributed through the EEHSP's fundraising efforts, knowing, of course, that we were going to be wanting and needing this exceptional equipment that we all spent a considerable amount of time and energy selecting for our new playgrounds at the new Enfield School. And I do want to point out that many, many years ago, when the new Erdenheim School was built, the EEHSP at that time did exactly the same thing. They contributed a significant amount of money in order to create a beautiful playground at Erdenheim, and our current EEHSP members over the past couple of years have done exactly the same thing. So I just want all of them to know how grateful not only I am and how grateful you as board members are, but how appreciative the parents and in particular the children of our new Enfield Elementary School are going to be as they are able to begin using all of that equipment as they come back to school. So I just wanted to make sure that I noted that for everyone. I also wanted to mention that as everyone is aware, hopefully by this point through the messages that I've put out to our community members, that on November 9th, we do expect to return in a hybrid model. We will be approving the change to our current status at our next board meeting, which is on November 2nd, the eve of the election. And we will be voting at that point on our revised health and safety plan, which will, of course, incorporate the details that reference our switch from an all virtual environment to our hybrid plan. Our hybrid opening allows us to be able to safely social distance students and to bring in limited numbers, so that we don't have massive numbers of students in the cafeterias and the hallways and of course in the classrooms. So our principals are working very diligently on their planning. I know I've seen messaging from them saying the details, including the split, whether it includes letters A to L, A to M, or whatever, is going out, I believe, by the end of the week. I also want to let everyone know that we've been working very hard on a video to send out to families. So you'll actually, before children come back, be able to visually see what a typical classroom looks like at each of our schools, what the hallway markings look like to keep children apart, what the cafeteria spacing will look like, and even what a typical phys ed class or a music class is going to look like. So that video will be coming out soon as well to hopefully help reassure parents about the PPE and the safety equipment and the safe procedures that we're going to have in place. We are very carefully monitoring the numbers. We know what the news has been, that there have been surges in many of the states across the country, including our own. So we do have to monitor that very carefully. We're very fortunate that still here in Springfield Township, we have an exceptionally low positivity rate, and that rate is actually lower than all of our neighboring districts, including those that have already brought children back, such as Wissahickon and Lower Moreland. We're lower than Colonial, Cheltenham, Abington, Hatboro, Horsham, and so forth. So we're in a very good position at this point, but I do want to just caution everyone that things can change. And there is, of course, prediction that the surge will arrive in the eastern portion of the state at some point as well, which unfortunately may mean that we have to revise our current planning to reopen in a hybrid model. So we will keep careful track of that and keep everyone apprised with, again, frequent communication as we have over these past several weeks and months. And finally, I just want to extend my congratulations, although it's premature because the vote hasn't taken place yet, to Dr. Damian Johnston, who is on the agenda this evening to be approved by the board as our new assistant superintendent, who will serve along with Dr. Yana Cohn after my retirement in December. I'm absolutely thrilled that Dr. Johnston has been selected. We were in a very unusual and fortunate position throughout the interview process to have two absolutely incredibly outstanding internal candidates. And that's extraordinarily unusual for administrative positions in our district. And I know what a challenge it was for the members of our administrative team and for Dr. Yana Cohn to make a final selection, knowing that we did have two such incredibly wonderful candidates. But a choice had to be made. It is Dr. Johnston. We're thrilled to have her as part of, to continue as part of our administrative team. And of course, I know the search will be beginning shortly in order to find her successor as well. So again, congratulations, Dr. Johnston. And that's it from my report. Thanks, Dr. Taratuski.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hacker. All right, let's move to new business. Number 1, personnel. The Board of School Directors approves the following personnel as presented in the attachment: certificated personnel, support personnel, temporary personnel, and extra pay for extra responsibilities. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Okay, Mr. King?
The motion has been read and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Number 2, KS Consultants, Inc. The Board of School Directors approves the contract with KS Consultants, Inc. to provide individual counseling, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, school consultation, and family therapy services for the district as needed at the hourly rates in the attached contract effective October 20th, 2020. Attachment J. Is there a motion
Motion.
and a second?
Second?
Any comments or questions? I actually have a question, Dr. Hacker. How does this, I know we have our own social workers and psychologists. We also have SAP services. And so I'm wondering where these consultants will be used.
That's a great question. This is primarily for specialized services depending upon the particular supports or needs of students primarily with IEPs. So they may need, for example, some type of specialized family-based therapy or a very specialized cognitive therapy that we might not be able to provide with our own staff.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, Mr. King.
As the motion has been read and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Number 3, Watershed Resources Inc. The Board of School Directors approves the contract with Watershed Resources Inc. for $1,500 for professional development on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, to enhance staff strategies and skills to cope with stress, while also providing guidance to students and modeling as leaders in the school community. Is there a motion
Motion.
and a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Okay. Mr. King?
The motion has been read and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Number 4, acceptance of donation. The Board of School Directors accepts a donation from the Enfield-Erdenheim Home and School Partnership in the amount of $50,000 to contribute to the cost of new Enfield Schools playground equipment. Is there a motion
Motion.
and a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Just what an incredible investment in our students and what a strong partnership with the Home and School Partnership. Just really proud of all the effort that they put into fundraising and focus on our kids. So really, truly appreciate it.
I also just want to mention, I didn't mention it before, but we had a number of individuals, including, of course, Dr. Van Voren and Dr. Damian Johnston, as well as Mr. Thorne and Mr. King, who were involved with us in selecting the equipment for the new playgrounds at Enfield. It was a laborious process, but it was also a lot of fun trying to pick out equipment that was budget friendly, but also that we knew was going to be a lot of fun for the children and would provide all of our students, including children with disabilities, with the ability to be able to go out and participate at some level utilizing the new equipment. So everything was chosen in a very mindful and meaningful way. So I just want to thank them for all of their help and support with that.
Absolutely. I want to echo that. And this really demonstrates, again, the commitment of our community, support for our schools. And that really is the heart of what makes us an excellent school district. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Mr. King.
Motion has been read and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Number 5, ambulance service. The Board of School Directors approves the agreement with the Ambler Community Ambulance Association to provide standby services for home football games at the Springfield Township High School during the 2020 season for a fee of $1,200. Is there a motion
Motion.
and a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Okay, Mr. King?
The motion has been read and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion carries.
Number 6, Nexus School. The Board of School Directors approves the tuition contract between the Nexus School and the Springfield Township School District for the 2020-2021 school year for student 2020-1020-01. Is there a motion
Motion.
and a second? A second?
Second.
Any
Second.
comments or, okay, any comments or questions? Okay, Mr. King?
Motion has been read and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Number 7, election of Assistant Superintendent of Schools. The Board of School Directors elects Dr. Damian Johnston as the Assistant Superintendent of Schools of the School District of Springfield Township, effective December 7, 2020 through June 30th, 2023, at an initial starting salary of $175,000 per year, subject to the contract between the School District of Springfield Township and Dr. Damian Johnston, and further subject to the official motion to elect prepared by the district solicitor. Is there a motion
Motion.
and a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? I would just like to say welcome aboard again, Dr. Johnston, in your new, as we vote, this new capacity that you will be coming into. We're very pleased to have you join the administrative team in this capacity, and looking forward to working with you in this expanded role. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, Mr. King?
Motion has been read and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? And the motion carries.
Congratulations, Dr. Johnston. I know she's out there listening.
She's out there.
I can see her on the list, so. Okay, it's the second opportunity for public comments on non-agenda items at this time. You can use the hand raise feature or use the Q&A for a public comment period. And if you choose to speak, please state your name, where you reside in the township, and make every effort to keep your comments to about 3 minutes so that we could allow those who would like to speak to have an opportunity to do so this evening. So we'll open up public comments.
Dr. Taratusky, there's nothing coming through in the chat.
Okay, great. I don't see any hands raised at this point. Okay. All right, well, we'll close the public comment up. I see one hand. I'm sorry. Didn't leave it open long enough. Mr. Lynch? You can unmute so we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you state
Okay.
your name and where you are in the township, please?
My name is Ruth Lynch. I live in Erdenheim.
Okay.
I am the grandmother of 5 children in your school district. And I have 2 things to address, actually. The first thing being the use of the fields for the athletes. It has come to my attention recently that 2nd and 3rd graders are being assigned times to practice till 10 o'clock at night. When people from outside the township are coming in and using the fields at normal times. I'd like to know why. The people that live in this township should have first access to especially the children, should have first access to these fields. Okay, that's the first thing. Do you want to answer that, or do you want to hear my second thing?
Why don't you share your second concern, and then we'll address both issues when
Okay,
you're
thank you.
finished. Okay?
The second thing is, for sports after school, the families or the children themselves are expected to drive to away games. Why aren't they being bused? There are bus drivers available. There are buses available. They've already been paid for. I don't understand why they have to. It's insane to put teenagers on the road at traffic hour, especially in bad weather, when they could be on a bus. Even if, because of the numbers, it takes 2 buses instead of 1 to get them there and get them home, I still don't understand. I mean, the rule is when they are normally in school, non-pandemic, they're not allowed to drive. So it doesn't make any sense to me. And I would like to hear you discuss that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Lynch. Dr. Hacker, who would you like to address the issue
So
of?
I think I'll have Mr. Thorne, our Director of Facilities, explain the decision regarding the fields. In the meantime, I can address the issue about the bus drivers. Until we open on November 9th, all of our bus drivers have been furloughed, except recently when we began last week with our non-public school transportation. So we did not have buses running for any purpose in the entire district, including non-public transportation, athletic activities, and so forth. And obviously, if any parent feels concerned about a teenager driving after school hours, we would hope and certainly encourage their parents or neighbors or someone to be able to drive them rather than having them drive themselves. But that's the reason why we did not have our buses running, because all of our bus drivers have been on furlough since the beginning of the school year. Now that we've opened up non-public transportation, we did have some bus drivers who bid on those runs. We are short a number of bus runs, particularly as we're looking towards opening up on November 9th, because we have a number of bus drivers that are not coming back as a result of the pandemic and medical issues. So we are short bus drivers to begin with. So that, of course, is a factor in terms of consideration for down the road as well. So I'll let Mr. Thorne address the fields issues.
Thank you, Dr. Hackering. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, the reason for the later practice time for the soccer club is because of our own cheerleading program. Our regular sports team practiced till a certain time. The cheerleading program had asked to get in practice time as well. So that bumped everybody along. And it's not from any issue with an outside user group. It's actually our own teams that has bumped the times for the soccer club practices back.
Thank you, Mr. Thorne.
If I could comment on the comment, and Mr. Thorne, I think that makes a ton of sense. But I want to say 2 things on the fields. One is I do think it's important for township residents that are on this call now to also discuss field availability with the township, right? It is truly a township issue, not a school issue on availability of fields. The lighting, right, is only on the school fields because we've invested in supporting the school and school athletics. So I do think it's an important conversation and in partnership that we talk about it with the township more broadly. The second comment I would make, I do think it's a fair expectation, and it sounds like it is in this case, Mr. Thorne, that residents would feel as though they would have the opportunity within the township to have, kind of first rights of option to use the fields. I understand our policies in place that allows for, outside organizations to use the field, which I agree with. I do think that's the right decision. But I would love for us to relook at the policy to understand if there are ways we could create a window of time where township clubs or associated clubs with the township could have an opportunity to put in applications. I don't frankly know how that would work, but would love to put that into your camp for consideration on the administration side.
Certainly, yes. We always support our township programs first. We do operate on a first come, first served basis. So we've informed all the township programs, hey, please put in all your applications for field use as soon as you can. Put them in so we know you're in there. It just puts you in the queue. So we're aware that you are looking for the field. You may not use them, but at least you're in the queue. We can see you. If any other organization reaches out at that time, we can say, well, someone else wants that same time and space. Let me see what they're doing, and we can make that return phone call and obviously work things out. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, Melissa Dunlap.
It's actually her husband, John Dunlop,
Hi, John.
2007 Bridal Lane.
Thank you.
I can't believe I'm making this phone call, but I'm going to throw it back to the 3 comments I heard tonight. 1, great donation for the new school playground. What a great investment. Well, my son's an 8th grader and is looking at several schools. How is it a great investment of bringing outside clubs that will never feed into our school programs? How is that a great investment? 2, my daughter's a cheerleader. She does not practice on the fields. She practices on the dirt JV field. So what the woman was asking earlier, why are kids playing later? That's not on the turf field.
No.
3, Dr. Hacker, you just said that we are the #1 school with low COVID numbers. What the hell were we bringing people from other townships into our area to spread the virus around? That we'll be up higher with them. It doesn't make sense, people. It doesn't make sense. You asked those 3 questions that you all said tonight that were excellent things. Well, respond back to those 3 excellent things, please.
If I could
I'm
jump in.
actually, I'd like to just clarify actually what the question is at this point. Is it who we're bringing? I'm not quite sure what your question is. I heard several comments, and I just want to clarify that.
I would suggest, Dr. Tarataski, I think, look, your frustration is noted, Mr. Dunlop.
Mhm.
Appreciate you calling in, but I think we'll just note your comment and for the record.
Oh, you can't respond to it?
Well, that's the point. I think one, you kind of got heated there, which didn't really help us understand what the question was.
Okay, the question is why we bring in other townships into our townships when we have a low rate of COVID numbers.
And also, to clarify, the cheerleaders are not cheering, and that is not the reason that our kids are playing late on our fields.
And 3, we have a great
So is that,
investment.
I'm sorry, is that a question? I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
That's
That's a
one's
comment.
statement. That's
Okay.
a comment.
Okay, thank you.
And 3, we just put a nice playground and investment for our children in this community. So bringing outside people into this community, how are these kids supposed to get better in their programs to participate in our school programs? So there's 3 questions there to be
2
answered.
questions. The one I stated was not, because I would like that clarified, but clearly you're just taking that as a comment. So that's what I'm hearing you say. But what that comment was about the cheerleaders is not accurate. So if you could clarify that, that would be great.
I could respond to the cheerleading, if you may. We were informed by the athletic director that the reason why the outside user groups are being moved back was because the cheerleaders wanted time in the stadium to practice. As you did suggest, they were practicing on a JV field. So the wheels were in motion there. The athletic director allocated time for the cheerleaders to practice in the stadium. I'm not sure when it's going to happen. It's on the schedule. You can reach out to the athletic director, but that's why the times were bumped back, not for any other outside user group.
Dr. Hacker, did you want to respond to any of the other questions? I'm not quite sure how to respond to those actually at this point.
I'm actually not either, other than what Mr. Thorne said. I think,
Right.
I do believe though that what I'm hearing seems to be a concern that has arisen regarding the fact that there is an outside user group that has been using the fields. And I do believe that there is concern about that and a perception that they were given the opportunity to have use of the fields over internal organizations. And if I'm understanding Mr. and Mrs. Dunlop's question about outside groups coming in, I think they're trying to establish, at least he is, the connection between outside individuals bring outside issues, including the threat of the virus coming onto our fields and into our community if they're allowed to use the field. So let me clarify at least one of those things, and that is once the fields are open, anyone can use them, including, for example, our track. We can have anyone coming and using the middle school track and walking on the track. We can't prevent people regardless of what community they're from. And there are outside students coming in when they play our own teams. So we have students coming in from all over the county and outside, and including other counties coming onto our fields because they play our teams for football and for other sports. So it's impossible to keep students out from other areas where exposure rates and transmission rates may be higher. But as far as the issue of the outside user group, I do believe that Mr. Thorne referenced that. Craig, if you don't mind my asking again, can you go over the fact, the process and the procedures that are currently in place that would allow an outside user group to reserve the fields to the exclusion or pushing to a later time our own township user groups? I really believe that's, if I'm not mistaken, the heart of the Dunlop's question is how can an outside user group, and I believe that was Mrs. Lynch's question as well, be given that opportunity and preference over our own internal organizations. Am I saying that correctly, Melissa?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Hacker. Yes,
Okay.
you are. And it does go back to my son's practicing until 10 p.m. every night because they get, they get 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. slots in 8th grade. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think, again, Mr. Thorne can explain that, but Mr. Bedard also, I do want to clarify, made an excellent point that, Mr. Thorne can explain current policy, which has allowed that situation to happen, much to the detriment and misfortune of the internal organizations. However, policy can be reevaluated. And I think that was Mr. Bedard's point, that perhaps this is something that in the future we need to take another look at so it doesn't happen again. But Craig, can you please explain how this has happened?
Sure, certainly. Just to clarify, the cheerleaders will be on the multi-purpose field and not the stadium. So I just wanted to clear that up, but they do have space, and that's why the other organizations have been bumped back. When any organization, our township programs or anyone else wants to use our fields, they go through the application process. So it's a first come, first serve. People put in their applications. They have to submit their insurance, their COVID response plan. And what we do is look through the calendars, make sure there's no scheduling conflicts. Again, with this fall, with the sports, the soccer club, we looked back 2018, 2019 and looked at their use on the turf fields. They only actually used our turf fields for 1 week in November. So other than a few different dates. They're always on our grass fields, but there wasn't a consecutive week after week use by the soccer club for the turf fields. They mainly use the grass fields. They practice in our gyms and whatnot. So when the fields became available this fall, in fact, it was September 15th, we had reached out to the soccer club and said our fields are now available for outside user groups. Please put in your application for use immediately so we can get you in the schedule. So unfortunately, we didn't hear back from the soccer club until October. In the meantime, another soccer organization had submitted their application for use on September 16th. In fact, their representative is a community member here in Springfield. So she was able to put in her application immediately. We reviewed past use of the field, didn't see a big use for turf of grass the soccer club uses. So didn't hear back from the soccer club here. So we decided at that point to approve the other application to use the field. It's just for 3 nights a week. When the Springfield Soccer Club found out about the other group using the field, we immediately offered them the other 2 remaining days of the week, as well as any weekend time that we could give them to use the turf fields. It comes down to 2 weeks in October that there really is a scheduling conflict. It's the first 2 weeks, of November. It's a total of 6 days where there's a scheduling conflict with the 2 soccer groups. So it's my understanding that the Springfield Soccer and the other soccer group, they're talking to each other. They're trying to straighten this out, seeing if they can't work with times. But basically, that's the process. And I would second Mr. Bedard's recommendation to work with these township groups, to work with the township, and see if we can't put some guidelines in place to avoid situations like this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Dunlap. Tracy Smith? Tracy? Tracy, you're unmuted, so if you'd like to make a comment, you're free to do so. Your hand is up, and we do have you on to make a comment, but can't hear you, so. Oh, you're muted again.
Ms. Smith, if you want to put your comment in the chat, I can relay it for the group.
Either the chat or the Q&A. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so let's move to Thomas DiBattista.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Mr. DiBattista. Can you just share where you live in the township, please?
Sure, I'm on 134 Redford Road in Orland.
Thank you.
You know, I think it's all a good conversation about the fields. I actually have a question just in general about the turf field and just the policies about, you know, because I'm not, you know, I am part of the Springfield Soccer Club. I do coach 2 teams on it. But what about just individuals? You know, I noticed that the turf field is often locked along with the stadium, but I see like the tennis courts are unlocked, and I see just, you know, townships or people of the township or from wherever are allowed to use the tennis courts, but it seems like we keep the turf field locked at all times. I was just wondering, why do we do that? And why is there a difference in policy between those 2 types of fields?
Mr. Thorne, would you be able to field that question?
Yeah. So the tennis courts are available to the whole community as long as there's no large groups that are using it. We ask them to fill out the facilities use requests, insurance, COVID plan. But the majority of the folks that we see out on our tennis courts are just community members. So with the field, the
How do you know that?
Just by observation, we do see them. I do come by on the weekends. I've actually approached folks that look like they were instructing folks, almost like tennis teachers, and asked them, that this is not appropriate unless you do the facilities use policy, things of that nature. For the multi-purpose turf field, not the stadium, the other multi-purpose field, we do keep that locked down. That is just currently for the athletic programs here for the school district. So that's only by permit only, as well as our athletic teams. The stadium, early on in the COVID pandemic, we did open our stadium back up. But what we found is that huge volumes of people were coming. In fact, there was whole athletic track programs coming and using the stadium to run track practice for organizations that I don't even know where they were from. So we have since locked it back down because of the COVID concerns. Nobody was social distancing. No one was wearing masks. So anybody that was using the stadium athletic track is now going over to the middle school if they prefer that type of running. But the stadium and the multipurpose field now are locked down unless it's, approved user groups or our own athletic programs.
Yeah, I just wish that we could figure out a way to open them up for actually kids, not necessarily groups, just to play. That's one of my, when I was little, I would go down to the high school football field where I lived and played on that a lot. It was a great experience. I wish my kids could also have that experience as well. But I understand.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thorne. Thank you, Mr. DeBattista. Tracy Smith, we're going to try to get you in again, Tracy.
Can you hear me now?
We can, yes, thank you.
Switch devices.
Okay.
Tracy Smith, 209 Penn Oak Road in Flowertown. Also, again, thanks for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. Dr. Hacker and Mr. Thorne, you know that I attended all of the meetings, or many of the meetings, when we were going through and laying the turf and doing the field renovations, and how important I felt that it is to many of the kids in the township. I'm glad to hear that we're looking at maybe revisiting these plans about getting maybe the township kids and programs involved and looked at first. And I think we need to be careful, just, understanding about the first come, first basis, because there should be windows if that's the case. So in other words, can a program come in now and secure it for the spring? So I think when we look at those policies, we want to look at that as well, whereas people are not trying to, hoard through the next year. Also, too, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. We're talking a lot about the turf. Could you share a little bit more about the baseball fields? The high school and middle school fields are the only 60-90 large fields in the township. So any children that are playing baseball on that bigger field often have the inability to play. I can't say that I've been directly a part of those that have reached out, but from my understanding, there has not been a lot of success, or it's been very difficult to get baseball teams on to use those fields. So many of our teams that are playing that on those bigger fields can only have away games. So we're traveling 40, 50, 60 minutes to games because we can never have home games or home practices. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that, if we can talk about that as well. And I guess I'm just looking for a little more clarification. I know you're saying that the turf stadium is closed, but yet people can go and use the facilities of the middle school. I still don't understand, if people are allowed to use the middle school, why, in terms of COVID guidelines, the same wouldn't apply for the stadium as well.
So if you don't mind, I'll answer that. We that in the stadium, many more people were coming, and they were doing everything from running the track, playing football, soccer. And believe me, we love to see that, but they were not maintaining social distancing. They weren't wearing masks. So I think it's the fact that they're in the, I'm going to say, confined stadium space, to where we really notice that no social distancing, no observing any COVID rules at all. Whereas at the middle school, it seems more open. People are on the different fields. The track is nowhere near congested. So, and there's really no fencing to really close down all the middle school athletic fields and track. We don't have fencing around there. So that would be really hard. But again, we would address that. We put snow fencing up early on in the pandemic to keep folks out, but you don't see the volume of people in congestion at the middle school. And as far as the softball and baseball fields go, they are available for use. In fact, we have one program now that's running over at the middle school. The folks put in their permit application, nobody was on it, no sports teams, and they're actually over there practicing now. So the softball fields and the baseball fields here at the high school are available. Just so everyone is aware, though, we don't maintain the infields, cut the grass other than a weekly schedule. So if our sports teams aren't actually active in that season, we don't maintain paint line, chalk bases, things of that nature. But they are available currently.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Jared Epps.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Melissa Epps. I live on Bradford Road in Orland.
Hi, Melissa. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. So with the reopening plans, Dr. Hacker noted that we are already below some of our neighboring townships. So my question is, in order to open full time, what exactly are you looking for in terms of number of cases within the township? I don't know what your plans are on reevaluating or to go full time. So just looking for some clarification on that.
Sure. It's a good question, Melissa. Unfortunately, at this time, I don't really envision that we will be opening full time at any point in the near future, regardless of the data and the numbers. And there are two major reasons for that. One is during the pandemic, as long as we have this coronavirus, there is no way for us to open up full time and have the number of students who are enrolled in any of our schools and who are in our classes with class sizes as they are, that will give us the ability to be able to safely social distance those children. There are classes at the middle school, for example, that have 30 children in them. There's no way without kids being packed into a classroom that we would be able to safely accomplish that. Similarly, our cafeterias, when they have an entire class of students eating in, the children are all sitting together. If it's a table designed for 10 children, there are 10 children seated at that table, as opposed to being able to put 2 or 3 and keep them safely apart. So I don't really envision any way that, at least for this year, during the course of this pandemic, we are going to be able to open full time. Another major issue for us, and it's one that we are grappling with even now as we're opening with half our population, is staffing. Staffing is a huge concern, not only for our district, but for many of the districts. And the reason for that is many of our staff have medically fragile or immunocompromised conditions, which make it challenging for them, based on doctors' orders, to come back into the school environment while there is this virus that is out there. So we are having challenges with staffing, even now, with half of our population coming in. So as I said, those are really the two major reasons why I don't envision us being able to bring children back on a full-time basis with 100% of the population.
Even if things change with, what the governor is saying or what the CDC is saying?
It's my opinion that the only way it could change is if a vaccine were rapidly developed and widely available to individuals. And again, I don't envision that occurring. As long as there is a pandemic, regardless of what the numbers are, I just don't see how we can do it.
Okay. It's just a shame because, what about all these, kids that have recently graduated from college with teaching degrees? I mean, I know the number of applicants you get when a position opens in Springfield, and I know that some of these younger teachers would literally walk through gauntlets of fire to be able to teach in a classroom. And, why aren't we giving people who can teach the ability to teach even on a temporary basis?
Well, Melissa, I will tell you there's an incredible teacher shortage right now. Unfortunately, despite what you've just shared with us, our HR director is having incredible challenges locating individuals who want to come into schools, because during a pandemic, it is not an ideal environment and people are concerned about that. And so, and we're all fighting for teachers. Every single school district is having staffing challenges right now. So we're all trying to hire teachers, and it's very challenging. These are just unfortunately not normal times, and these are not normal situations for us to be dealing with.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hacker.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ms. Lynch, I would recognize you. I understand that you did speak again. If you have I'm actually going to move to Lee Aberly, though, because I want to try to give individuals who have not spoken yet an opportunity to do that. So Lee Aberly.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. So I don't have a question, I have more of a comment, and it's really directed at the entire school board and administration. Just to say, I have a child who is in the low incidence disability population and has been back in school on a part-time basis over the last few weeks. He's at Erdenheim, and I'm just eternally grateful for the school board administration for allowing this to happen and putting in place support around busing, etc. It's just been such a great experience. Unfortunately, he's back home at the moment because of the situation at Erdenheim, but we're very much looking forward to being back in person on the 26th, and I'm just so grateful that the IEP team, Dr. Johnson, everybody's been able to make this happen. It's made a world of difference to all of the kids that are in that program, I think. So just want to say thank you.
Lee, I just want to thank you for making those public comments, because I know you were one of many who had approached the board and had spoken at previous board meetings with your concerns about what special education services were going to be provided for the children. So it's very lovely that you came back to let the board know that you are indeed pleased. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Even in the last couple of weeks, in the last week or so, we've had to switch back to virtual. I think, everybody had a plan, we've got a schedule in place, it's not perfect, but, I think just being able to be back in school for those 4 half days has just made such a difference, certainly to my son. And, I see it with the other children in the Zoom calls as well. So I think, just thank you so much.
Thank you, Lee. We appreciate that. Okay. Ms. Lynch, I'll recognize you again for another comment. You're muted.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to very briefly readdress the issue of busing the sports teams. It appears that all of the other schools that were, I don't know all, but the ones that I've seen are busing their kids. Lower Moreland, Upper Moreland, they're busing. PW's busing. Anyway, I know that you said, well, if you don't want your kids driving, get the parents to drive. And I'm not a parent of a current student, so I really can't specifically address that, except that these parents are going overboard in culture shock because they're teaching and they're helping to teach, and they're really doing something they've never done before with their kids at home all the time. It would be super helpful if the athletes could be bused. Also safer, because last week, one of my granddaughters, who is a junior, drove home in a teeming rainstorm. She's a new driver. It wasn't supposed to rain. And so her mother let her drive, and she had to drive home in a bad storm. I'm just putting that out there for consideration. I understand. I live with two bus drivers, one above me and one across the driveway. So I know they would be willing to go back if they were asked, but nobody's asked. So putting it out there, you can shuffle that around however you want, but it's concerning that these kids might be driving and they shouldn't be.
Thank you, Mrs.
Okay.
Lynch. Thank you, Mrs. Lynch.
You're welcome.
Okay. I don't see any other hand raises. Is there anything in the chat or the Q&A? No.
That is clear. The Q&A is clear and up to date.
Okay. Terrific. All right. Jen Gucho. Jen, you're muted. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, one thing that I wanted to ask about the student drivers. God forbid one of them was in a car accident. Who is liable? It's a school function. It's something for school. Is it on my insurance? Is it on your insurance? How does that work?
Mr. Sultanic, would you like to address that?
If it is in somebody's personal vehicle, even though it is on a school function, it would be the responsibility of the individuals who are in the accident, and it would be on their insurance under the circumstances.
That's great. That's great. That our school district cannot support our kids in this situation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jen. Dr. Hacker, I just want to clarify something. Am I correct that when we do bring our students back hybrid, we will have busing, correct?
We will.
For our
In fact,
students.
we've reached out to our bus drivers who are currently furloughed. They will be rebidding again on runs that will include the public as well as the non-public.
Okay. And will there be any transportation then available to our sports
We're
teams
hoping
also?
Yes, our
Okay.
major concern is also social distancing on the buses.
Yes. Understood. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. So. All right. Well, seeing that there are no other hands raised, and I don't know if there's any other. There's one Q&A. Are we looking at an action plan for winter sports? At this point, yes, we would be, and that would be included in our revised health and safety plan. Is that correct?
No, not necessarily. At this
Okay.
point, I know it was a topic of discussion at today's Suburban One League meeting, but I was being told, hold on one second, there are no non-league games that are taking place. There are no scrimmages that are going to be taking place, and there has not yet been a decision made as to whether or not wrestling will occur at all. So they are still debating all of that at the Suburban One League.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Seeing that there are no more public comments, future meeting dates, interim board meeting on Monday, November 2nd at 7 p.m. will be a virtual meeting. Regular board meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 17th at 7 p.m., a virtual meeting. And board committee meetings, the Finance Committee will meet on Wednesday, November the 11th at 5 p.m. That is also a virtual meeting.
Karen,
And
excuse me, I believe you just said September for one of the board meeting dates. rather than November.
I apologize for that. The interim board meeting will be on Monday, November the 2nd, 2020, and Monday, the next meeting will be on a Monday because Election Day is that Tuesday. And then again, the regular board meeting will be on Tuesday, November 17th, and Finance Committee on November the 11th.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Any other meetings at this point scheduled? No?
Nope, that's it so far.
Very good. All right, thank you all. Have a good evening. We're adjourned.
Thank you all, everyone. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.